with Alpine Rescue Team. Lynda's been on the team for over 9 years. She's lived in Colorado for 15 years. Extensive climbing experience and has climbed all over the world. Switzerland, Italy, Tanzania, Nepal. What a resume. She's also an ultra runner. Believe me, this woman gets up at 3:30 and runs 20 miles just for the grins in the morning. It's amazing. Could not believe it. Let's see, she's run in Europe, Reunion Island, Cuba, British Columbia. From a different perspective, she's been rescued twice, once off of Long's Peak. So, personal perspective. Lynda, take it away. Thanks.
So 10 years ago, I started teaching wilderness first aid with Colorado Mountain Club. And you know, you have to give your experience like Bruce just did. So I got to stand up here and say, hi, my name is Lynda, and my wilderness first aid experience is I've been admitted to more emergency rooms than anybody I know. So now, today, 10 years later, hi, my name is Lynda, and I have used every single one of these devices for self-rescue. So that's why I'm teaching this class today. I thought about going online and doing a bunch of research and making this a really technical topic, but I'm not a terribly technical person. I am kind of a computer geek, and I'm definitely a gadget geek. But I wanted to make this more personal, so I wanted to tell you my experiences with these devices and what I use them and what I've found out about them. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information on each one of them, and then I'm going to give you some pros and cons, and again, based purely on my experience. So please take it with a grain of salt, followed by a margarita. So cell phones, everybody's got them, everybody loves them. Long's Peak was actually the chance I got to use for the cell phone. So that was about 10 years ago, because Long's Peak is the second time I'd ever heard about search and rescue, and is actually one of the reasons I'm on the team today. Was climbing the Keeners route. My climbing partner fell. I was not a lead climber, so we were kind of stuck. It was April, it was actually Easter weekend. It was the two of us, but there were two other people on the route, and they actually ended up rescuing us. But we all pulled out our cell phones, and none of us had bars, none of us had coverage. But I had heard that even without it, if you tried 911, you could still get through. The FCC has a rule that if anybody can pick up a 911 call, they have to. So if you don't have bars, still try making that call. And we were actually able to get a call through to 911. He heard enough, and fortunately knew enough about mountaineering that he knew where we were and he knew who to call. So he was able to activate a huge search and rescue, because Keeners in April is a very technical route. And I still run into people today who were on that rescue who remember it 10 years later. So there are a couple of, Bruce actually did a straw poll with the team, and the two applications that came up that people really like to use for maps was Gaia and PDF Maps. And PDF Maps is the one that I like to use. It'll actually use the GPS on your phone to, if you have the UTMs or the maps that you upload, it'll use it, you can figure out where you are and kind of work where you want to go. Gaia, I think it's a $20 app. Also very good, you actually can do the same thing with that. I've used it on my computer and I really like it for that. It's got a lot of really good information, but I haven't used it on my cell phone. And then Peak Finder, I love this app. It's totally not a navigation app, but you can use it to find out what peaks are around you. So if you're driving up I-70, you can hand your phone to somebody who's not driving up I-70, and you can figure out where the peaks are. So you can, making a plan. These are things you can do if there's peaks that you want to climb. This is how you can figure out where they are. So cell phones, the advantages is everybody knows how to use them. So if I handed this handy little device to somebody, if I fall and whack my head and I'm unconscious, it's going to take them a few minutes to figure it out, if they figure it out at all. And I don't bring the instructions with me. But everybody knows how to use a cell phone. So if somebody gets hurt, they can use their cell phone or your cell phone, and they can get that call out. If you have a signal and you can get that call out, and the other handy thing to know about 911 calls is they're actually getting into texting now as well. How many people leave their cell phones on when they're hiking? And you get down and you have the 5% battery.
I also plug into the battery.
There you go. Exactly.
What,
Yeah,
I didn't hear what he just said, what did he say?
Do I say that again? You can plug into the battery. Yeah, you can bring a battery. They have
Oh,
like
yeah.
little chargers with you.
Right.
I have actually a solar powered charger that I take with me for charging it because I really am a gadget geek. But they're actually doing texting now as well. So you can text it to 911 and you should get a response in this area in Grand Junction. But I do, reverse side of that is, if you do take a cell phone with you, do try to turn it off or at least put it in airplane mode. That way you've got the battery life you need. We've actually had 2 in the last month where the person got one call out and then their battery died on the cell phone. So, you know, it's Murphy's Law, when you need it most is when it's not going to work. So there's some great apps for navigation. So Map and Compass, you can actually use it and help and enhance that. And then another thing you can do is take photos. So I was down in Tucson in April with some friends and they made all their plans that day. So I couldn't bring my map, I couldn't bring everything that I normally like to bring. So I get to the trailhead, I take a picture of the map at the trailhead. I get to a junction, I turn around, I take a picture of where I want to go. So it's a good way of keeping yourself from getting lost, because you know everything looks different once you turn around, and that's one of the reasons people end up getting lost is, did I go left, did I go right, this doesn't look familiar, maybe I'm in the wrong spot. Cons, battery life, just talked about that. And then the chances of having a signal are pretty slim. Again, Murphy's Law. If you need it, it's not going to be new. And then it can die. So I've taken my cell phone, I have a giant jacket, I put it in the pocket in the middle of winter, I take it out to take a picture, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to work today. So if it gets too hot, if it gets too cold, if you drop it on a rock, now you have no cell phone. All right, satellite messengers. I changed the name a little bit. It turns out PLB is a very specific term, personal locator beacon. It's like an ELB, an emergency locator beacon, which is for airplanes. Personal locator beacon is for people. They both use military service. So it's a very specific device. The kind of general name for these is satellite messengers. So there's basically 2 on the market, and I'm going to talk about both of them. This is the one I used to use, and I don't really use it anymore. And then the Delorme, this is the Spot, this is the Delorme. The Spot I actually haven't used to rescue myself, but I did manage to lose it once. So I used the Spot to rescue my Spot. I was hiking with a friend, she likes to bushwhack. These things use satellites, so that's one of the pros that I'll talk about. But if it's in my pack, one of the things I didn't like about this is if it was in my pack, unless it was on the very top pointing right up, it couldn't find a signal. So it came with a little carabiner, I stuck it here, sure enough, 2 miles from the trailhead, it falls off, I don't realize it until I get back to the car. They have websites, so if you pay monthly fees, you can have a website that tracks you. So I drove back to where I had cell phone, pulled out my cell phone, pulled up the map, figured out where it was, plugged that into my GPS, drove back, hiked 2 miles and found it. The good news is it was about 50 feet from where it said it was, so it was actually very easy to find. The also nice thing about that is if I'm within 50 feet of where search and rescue thinks I am, chances are search and rescue is going to find me. So this is a website that Greg Foley, who's a pretty famous in search and rescue, put together. So that'll give you some more of the technical details behind the personal locator beacons versus the satellite messenger. Again, the pros is they work by a satellite. So pretty much they always work. They're a little sketchy in the forest, they're a little sketchy on cloudy days, but 9 times out of 10, they're gonna work. So the newer ones allow texting, and that's why I actually ended up going with this one. We've had rescues where people have activated these, and the issue is we have no idea what to expect, so we can't plan for it. So it's usually a couple of hours before we can even get to the trailhead, back and forth and all of that. And then once we get there, we have to send out a team that is prepared for only the basics to figure out what's going on. So with this one, and I'll talk a little bit about the rescue I had kind of implemented with this one, and how much better that one went. They allow us to find you again. So again, there's a with all of them, there's people somewhere that when you activate it, they get notified. They notify the sheriffs notify us. They have your GPS location. We can come find you. They're very accurate, even with the cloud cover and everything. We can tell if you're staying put, we can tell if you're moving, so that kind of gives us an idea of what's going on. The other nice thing is friends can track you by our website. One of the very first rescues we had with the locator beacons is a lady who had just bought it, all excited. Her husband was all excited because he could go out and watch her on the website. He was watching her on the website, and after about an hour, she stopped moving. And she wasn't at the peak, she wasn't moving, and he waited. Half an hour goes by, and she's still not moving. An hour goes by, and she's still not moving. So he calls the sheriff and said, I think something's wrong. And so he calls us, we go up. About 15 minutes before we get to her, she wakes up because she had fallen and knocked herself unconscious and activates the beacon, and 15 minutes later we're there. She thinks this is an awesome device. But it is a kind of a backup plan. So, if your friends are tracking you and your friends are pretty smart, then, they can kind of figure out maybe something's wrong here. And then the battery life. This one I've accidentally left on. I've taken it in ultras, and it lasts about 24 hours of tracking. This one I took on a 48-hour ultra. It unfortunately turned itself off halfway through, or turned off the tracking halfway through, but it was still not even halfway through its battery life after 48 hours. So if you remember to charge it, if you remember to put new batteries in it, they work for a really long time. The downside is you can't practice with them, and I'm going to go into that in the next slide. Some are charged, you can't just replace the battery. That's what I do like about this, is I always take lots of extra batteries with me so I can replace it. What I've ended up getting into the habit of doing is I have a solar power charger that I take with me, and then the charger item for this. So I can charge it if I need to. Some don't allow communications. So then again, we have no idea what's going on if you activate it. The disadvantage with this is you can tell it's a small screen, so if you guys have ever sat here and done the up, over, check. Up, over, check. It takes forever to, and especially when something has gone wrong. Oh my gosh, this was painful. But they know what's going on. We do know what's going on, so you can use the abbreviations. We're all pretty tech savvy. We've got a lot of younger people on the team, so they know all the abbreviations, so you can use those. And then again, they can die. They're electronic. This one, I accidentally left it in my pocket and sent it to the washing machine, and it survived. So kudos there. I'm not sure this one would actually survive a washing machine, so if it gets wet, if it gets struck by lightning, if something happens electronic, it's not gonna work. So, Canada, August, Fat Dog 120. I turned it on, I'm tracking. I get to that point where the little blue dots stop, the red ones start. I turned a corner, I switch back on a trail. There's a guy lying on the trail in front of me. He just passed me, he was doing a shorter race, he was flying down the trail. He missed a spot and fell. His hands and his fingers were not where they were supposed to be. Kind of a minor injury in the big scheme of things, but he's sitting on the ground, moaning in pain. And I know that we're about 8 miles from the trailhead. I know it's a technical trail. I asked him, there's a couple other runners there, are you going to be able to walk out? He's like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to walk out. So I activate my beacon, my transceiver, messenger. It immediately switches the dots to red. The side story is my father is watching this from home. So, of course, bursts of adrenaline, he decides he is fine, he takes off flying down the trail. So I'm trying to communicate with them, because as soon as I activate it, I get a message going, we've received your activation, what's the issue? So I'm trying to explain to them in very short terms, guy has fallen, we're running this race, he's a trail runner, he's hurt his hand, we're 8 miles from the trailhead, we don't think we're going to be able to get out. But do you need help? Well, in the time that this is taken, which is like 5 or 10 minutes, he's up and he's gone. So I'm like, well, I don't know, hold on. And I'm kind of half expecting the adrenaline to wear off after a while and he's just gonna stop and fall over, or I'm afraid he's gonna trip and fall and hurt something else. So I wait, you know, you can see, I go and I go and I go and I go and I get somewhere and I finally realize this guy's gonna make it, so I don't need search and rescue. So I let them know that I didn't think I needed them. They said, we'll cancel the call, and when you do that, we'll stand everybody down. So I waited about another mile, still didn't see him, so I stood it down. And what ended up happening, unfortunately, is it turned off my tracking. So this is actually where I ended the race, but nothing happened. So there's my poor dad sitting at home going, what happened to her? He actually did make it to the trailhead. Search and rescue actually did show up and with an ambulance, and they took care of him at that point. But this is something I didn't know about. So that's when I say when you can't practice with it, you don't know what's going to happen. So I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to turn it off. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how painful it was to communicate. So these are things that I learned at like the worst possible moments. This is the one thing I just don't like about them. But still, the guy was rescued. Life went on for good. So I can't really say too much about it. GPSs. So I was asked to do this presentation about 2 months ago, and I had no story about GPSs. Well, guess what? 3 weeks ago, I now have a story about GPSs. I've only ever owned the Garmin's. I have the wrist GPS, and I have got the little handheld. So I always run and hike with both of these. When I'm in my car, I pull this out, and I set a waypoint where my car is. Anything ever happens, I always want to get back to my car. So I can with these. This is what I like about them. This one I turn on and I track, assuming it doesn't die. And again, I have the solar power charger and the charger for this, so I can keep it charged. And the nice thing about this is it will keep working while it's charging, so I can follow the lines back to it. But 3 weeks ago, I was in Silverton, and it was the first annual Double Dirty 30. So a 60-mile race. And it was in a kind of a figure eight, and the middle of the figure eight was the high point at 12,000 feet. If you remember, 3 weeks ago was when the big storm came through and dumped the first layer of snow everywhere. That was Friday. The race started Saturday. So we're running in the snow. I've got everything. I got this, I got the cell phone, I got 20 extra layers of clothing. Kind of obsessive compulsive because I've been rescued, because I've had so many things go wrong. So that's why they don't have me teach the 10 essential class, because I have more than 20. So it's about 11 o'clock at night. I've been running since 7 in the morning. I get to that middle part of the figure eight again, and I'm tired, I'm cold, it's 10 degrees, it's blowing 20 miles an hour. There's a guy ahead of me who's already missed the turn. I don't realize he's missed the turn, of course, so I continue to follow him, and I end up on the wrong part of the trail. I have the actual route uploaded into here. I don't think to look at it at that point because I'm cold, tired, and hungry, and it's 11 o'clock at night. The trail's been pretty well marked, and I see footprints, so I follow the footprints right back down the wrong way. About 2 miles later, when I'm supposed to be at the aid station and there's not an aid station, I begin to think maybe something's wrong. I pull out the GPS, but I'm still on course according to this. So I go another mile. Still no aid station, and now the trail's going up, and I know the trail's not supposed to be going up. So I pull this out again. It's saying I'm like a quarter mile, 3/4 of a mile from aid station 3. Well, I'm supposed to be at aid station 5. Finally, it hits me what's happened. So I'm about to turn around and go back up the trail, back up to 12,000 feet into the snow and misery, when I see 2 headlamps come around the trail. And these 2 really happy guys are like, "Are you looking for us?" No, I'm not looking for you. Their GPS had died 4 hours earlier. They were wearing shorts and a light jacket. So I told them, I have GPS, we can go do that. They're like, no, we're not going to go back up there. So I use this, I pull out my map, I figure out a route that we can get to where we can get picked up. I have the race director's email on this, so I text her, and 3 hours later they come get us. And aside to this is two people, there's another person, the guy that I had been following was actually still lost. They sent 2 people to go look for him and now they were unaccounted for. It was so really hard. So, GPS is the pros. They can tell you where you are. The cell phone can if you have service. That's the downside of this, is it really can't tell you where you are. But the GPS, it can tell you where you are. And it can tell you how do you get to where you want to go. Maybe not the best route, but it can tell you which direction. And if you leave it on, or if you set a waypoint, it can tell you how to get back to your car. As they tell you, the saying goes, getting to the summit is optional, getting back home is mandatory. So the cons is it can't tell us where you are. So you can use it to tell us if you have that communication, but there's no communication with it. And it also cannot call for help. And big shocker, it too can die. And the reason that I have those all can die on there is this is not your plan B. So make sure that when you go hiking, you always have a plan B. I think Howard's going to get into that a little bit with his 10 essentials. But for me, my plan B is letting somebody know where I am. Let them know where the trailhead is, where you're starting, when you're planning on getting back. That way, if it all goes wrong, if it all dies, there's somebody somewhere that knows where you are, or at least where you should be. Absolutely.
Flights we use about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect timing. Questions? Yes?
Just the other day, someone was telling me that, I always put my cell phone on airplane mode. But they said every, hour or half hour, you should turn it back on because if someone is looking for you and sometimes your cell phone will just ping and they can tell by looking at your cell phone somewhere else that you ping that tower or you ping this tower at different times. So they said, every hour or so, just turn it back on so that it can possibly ping a tower.
The old ones kind of work like that. They don't automatically ping, but when you send a text message or you have a phone call, and this is something that's really good to research, it's called phase 2 now, so the newer phones, and it actually works on GPS. So the older phones would work on the towers, and like the first rescue that I was on, where we actually pinged the cell phone tower, the subject was about 1.5 miles away. But with the new phase 2 technology, it's within tens or hundreds of feet. So you don't have to do that, but if you do, like send a text message or something, and then you have that. Yes?
Which solar charger would you recommend?
Oh, geez. As I walked out the door, I thought I should grab mine. I will recommend, if you get one, use one that has 2 USB ports on it, because actually at the Fat Dog race that I did, I was tired and I broke the USB port. So I have 2, and then very carefully do the second one.
Being a techie, do you have a preference? I have the original Phoenix, which I got right after we got lost, so they didn't have anything. All I wanted was just a waypoint for the car, and I went out and got one. But it's 10 years old, and I know the technology is much better, and I tend to look at every single one and research and research and research. So what do you have and what do you think?
I have the Phoenix 3.
Okay.
They're about to come out with the Phoenix 4. I love this. You can set waypoints on it. You can, so you can set it for your car. I don't usually do that because I have the other one. The battery life on this is 20 hours. The 4 is supposed to have even more. There is a mode where you can actually set it to 50 hours. It's only worth 40 hours, but it doesn't go off at GPS if you do that.
But if I'm out 40 hours, typically something went wrong.
Exactly. So 20 hours is usually plenty. 16 is realistically what I've used, but I always have like other things like the activity tracker and other things going on. So if you turn everything off, it really does get close to 20 hours. And I found it amazingly accurate. I use it with like Strava, and it always shows me right on the trail.
I use it with that for running. But
Yeah.
You say it was 16 with the GPS on it?
I'm sorry?
16 hours with the GPS on it?
With the GPS, with like activity tracker, and with sometimes I'll upload the course to it, so that drains the battery as well. So yeah, about 16 hours.
And that's probably a lot more accurate as well than the older version.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm something you said earlier. That thing continues to work while you have it on the charger?
Yes.
Okay. Just so you guys know, the Sunto version does not do that. If you charge it, it turns the GPS on.
Yes.
On your satellite phones, is there a monthly fee you have to pay, or how does that work?
Yeah, this one, it has 3 or 4 plans, so absolute basic is you're paying for everything. I have the $24.99 a month, and it gets me 40 text messages, which I've never gone over, even with some of the things I've done. And it does the tracking every 10 minutes, and then there's like a $50 a month, which does tracking every 2 minutes and gives you unlimited messages.
So you do have to buy a plan of some sort.
You don't have to. If you don't want the tracking, if you just want to use this for emergencies, all you have to do is buy the device.
So you don't need to pay a subscription for that?
Sorry?
You don't need to pay monthly subscription for that?
You don't if you just want to use it for the SOS. Yeah, if you do, I would recommend like getting this one because it's absolute basic. This one, I really like it because I can communicate. I had a race where I was trying to communicate with this one, and it's just like, you know, if I say this message, then I'm doing this. If I do this message, then I'm doing that. And then, of course, I changed my mind after I switched the message. So, yeah, but this one, you can send the text messages, and it makes it really easy.
Lights is coming up.
Okay.